Palestinian man recounts brutal sexual assault by Israeli settlers. The man said his attackers stripped him naked, beat him, and zip-tied his genitalia. An account corroborated by family members and a rights activist who were also beaten. And this is the victim. You can see they damaged his eye. It says here, Israeli settlers beat a Palestinian man in the occupied West Bank, stripped him naked, tied his arms and legs, and then zip-tied his penis. He, his family members, and another witness said on Wednesday, quote, I thought I was going to die. The man, Suhaib Abwal Kebish, a 29-year-old shepherd, told the New York Times, raping a shepherd, sexually torturing a shepherd. He said, I thought this was the end. Several family members and an American woman corroborated details of Mr. Abul Kebish's account, saying they witnessed the sexual assault on Friday by several men among a group of more than 20 settlers. So 20 of these sodomites raided the town, and they marauded through a Bedouin encampment. The relatives and the American said they had been beaten too, adding that the assailants had kicked and slapped children. These are the chosen people of Mike Huckabee. Slapping children and zip-tying a man's penis. These are the settlers that Rabbi Yishai Fleischer defends. And Rabbi Yishai Fleischer is the same guy who told Tommy Robinson that the British deserve the hottest place in hell. And Tommy Robinson sat there just listening to this guy and never even pushed back against him. Which really goes to show whose side Mr. Robinson is really on. So they beat kids up, and it says here, family members also shared copies of reports they had filed to the Israeli police. So this happened, right? This is not a fake story. This really happened. Israeli settlers have been waging an escalating campaign of violence and land theft against Palestinians across much of the West Bank. It has intensified as Israeli attitudes toward Palestinians have hardened since the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on October 7th, etc. The attacks have increased while international attention has been focused on the U.S.-Israel war with Iran. There you go. So they're taking advantage of this war to brutalize Palestinians even more. If you look at every genocide in history, look at all the genocides. Armenian genocide, genocide of the Jews by the Third Reich. If you look at all these genocides, the genocide of the Gazans, all of these genocides were done under the facade of being in a war. They were all done during a war. The Holocaust was done during Germany's war with the Soviet Union. The Armenian genocide was done during the Ottoman Empire's war with the Russians and the Entente during World War I. Genocides take place during wars, and the reason for that is because the murderers don't want all the negative attention from the international press, so what they do is they wait for a war to happen. And in wars, as we all know, people die. A lot of people die. Especially when you are in a major war, major conventional war where you're going to have a lot of casualties. So that is an opportunity for genociders to genocide, because then they can say, well, these people were killed in a war and people die in a war. And they can use that horrible, evil argument of, well, war is hell, so these people died and that's it. And they can hide behind that and they can get away with it and say, well, we were in a war and we didn't know these people were innocent. We thought that they were collaborators with the enemy and blah, 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 blah. And they can just like exterminate entire villages and all that stuff. So that's what the Germans did. That's what the Ukrainians did to the Poles in the 1940s. Also during World War II, they massacred at least 100,000 Polish people in Ukraine, in East Galicia, in Volyn, in Lvov. The Armenian genocide took place, especially in, I want to say in the eastern parts of Turkey especially, but really a lot of the killing took place in Syria. But the Armenian genocide happened during World War I. So genociders always wait for wars to happen before they want to commit their atrocities. That's what these settlers are doing. They're taking advantage of the fact that the media is focusing almost totally on this Iran war with America and Israel, and they're taking advantage of it. Now, if Israel gets itself into an even more serious war, that's really conventional, that's really drastic and full scale, the killing of the Palestinians is going to get worse. 100% it's going to get worse. So it says here, the settlers also stole the family's 400 sheep, its entire livelihood, along with the wedding rings and other jewelry, cell phone, cash, and identification papers, the family members said. So they're just thieves. That's all they are. They're just thieves, these people. They want to steal houses, steal jewelry, and they want to steal people's souls. They want to shatter people's souls by raping them and sexually torturing them. It's just sick fucking people. I can't stand these fanatic, satanic, demon-possessed Satanists. Oh, we have to support Israel, guys. Like, where are the evangelicals talking about this? Is Huxley talking about this? Is Marco Cain Rubio talking about this? We have to make this into an international story. Remember, oh God. Remember what happened a number of months ago. I talked about on this stream how you have settler fanatics expanding into Beit Sahor. They are expanding into Beit Sahor, and it was a story that was not covered a lot. I think Mondo Weiss had an article on it, but it was a very obscure story. The mainstream media was not covering it. New York Times wasn't covering it. Washington Post wasn't covering it. And I told you guys, I said, guys, settler fanatics, Jewish fanatics expanding into Christian neighborhoods outside of Jerusalem needs to become an international story. We have to make it into an international story. I did the stream. I did a number of videos on it. And what happened? About 2 months or so later, Tucker Carlson starts talking about it. Bam! It becomes an international story. We have to make this into an international story. That's what we have to do. We got to get Tucker or whoever to talk about this. We have to make this an international story so we can further bring the heat on Israel. And we can further get the American government to tell the Israelis, you got to stop, you got to put a leash on these bastards. And the thing is that even if America does that, Israel's not going to put a leash on these people. But that's going to bring more and more cracks to the American-Israeli alliance. Because Israel mistreating these people in such a horrific way, and America telling Israel to put an end to it, and Israel not putting an end to it, is going to make it worse for America to maintain this alliance with Israel. Just like the Israeli government persecuting Christians does not make the American-Israeli alliance easy. It makes it more difficult to where Huckabee has to say something. We have to make this an international story so we can intensify the heat against Israel. That is my opinion. We have to. So it says here, generally speaking, Palestinians and human rights activists say much settler violence in recent years has followed a pattern that can take months to play out. It begins with intimidation or restrictions, official or unofficial, on movement, then escalates with beatings or harsher violence targeting men. Many Palestinians who have abandoned their villages recently have said that the last straw was threats or attacks against women and children. One assailant used a hunting knife to cut Mr. Abul Kabish's pants and then his underwear, he said. His left eye still black and bloodied. He described the attack at the exact site where it happened. And here, the New York Times provides a photo where you can see the zip ties. So the zip ties that were used to bound these people by their hands, by their feet. It says here, as the beating went on, he said, one attacker cinched a zip tie tightly around his penis. This is demonic. This is satanic. This is not just a case of, well, oh, you're putting my sheep on my land and your sheep are on my land and my sheep need to graze on your land. This is not that. This is not a dispute over sheep and over grazing and over someone's lawn. This is satanic. This is demonic. You've now entered satanic territory. This is not just a property dispute. This is satanic. When you start doing stuff like this, it's demonic. You are now in the realm of the demons. The demons have your brain, they have your mind, they have your soul, they got everything. You are amongst those people that St. Paul says in his letter to the Romans that God gave up. St. Paul says this in his letter to the Romans. He says, men did all these horrific things in Sodom. He says, God gave them up. God has given these people up. God has given these people up. And if you read, oh my God, if you read Josephus's history on the Roman-Judean War, what does he say? Several times in the history, he says, God gave up Israel. He says it, and he's a Pharisee. He says, God has given up on Israel. God has abandoned Israel. He says this in his book. And he gives reasons as to why he says this. And one of the reasons was that the Judean fanatics who called themselves zealots turned to the ways of Sodom. And he says men began to put dresses on and they began to wear mascara and women's clothing. And he says they made all of Jerusalem into a gay bathhouse. This is what he says. They made it into Sodom. And this was 40 years after the crucifixion, 40 plus years after the crucifixion. They turned Jerusalem into a literal Sodom. No historians talk about this. No, and if they do, they always say, well, Josephus was a liar. I looked into this. I can only find 2 historians who talk about this on Google Books, and they say Josephus was making this up. But no one else really says anything about this. Historians do not talk about this. It is not a mainstream issue. Anytime they talk about the Roman-Judean War, they always say, oh, they destroyed the temple, oh, the diaspora, oh my God, it's so horrible. They never tell you about this stuff. And what did Jesus tell the people around him? He said, this generation, the generation that's going to kill me, he says, they are a generation that they are like a man possessed by a demon. This generation is like a man possessed by one demon. And that demon says, hey, this is a pretty nice place to stay. And he leaves and he comes back with 7 more demons. And now the man is even more possessed. He's 8 times more possessed. He says, so it will be with this generation. This generation is going to become even more demonic. And what happened 40 plus years after his crucifixion? They turned Jerusalem into Sodom. Jerusalem literally became Sodom. And many years before that happened, St. John wrote in the book of Revelation, Jerusalem is Sodom. And what do we see right now in Israel? Jerusalem showing that it is becoming Sodom, or that it is Sodom. It is revealing its Sodomite spirit. And it says here that the victim showed a reporter the mark that remained from the injury on his private part. He said the assault had rendered him speechless, unable to believe what was happening to him. Israeli police officers, he added, appeared shocked when he described it. So even the Israeli officers were disturbed by this. The settlers had then burst into the family members' tents while they slept, dragging the women by their hair. They beat the women and slapped or kicked the children, the adults said. Mr. Abul Kabish's wife, Niama Abul Kabish, said that when she grabbed a head covering, a settler tore it from her hands, shouted no, and threw it to the ground. He hit me, kicked me in the mouth, and said, die, die. And these are just demons. They said, if you don't leave, we will burn you. We will hit you. We'll take your children. We will rape your women. Go to America, go to Jordan, go or anywhere else, but go. The settlers eventually cut the zip ties, but not the one on Mr. Abul Kabish's genitalia. He said he needed his brother's help to remove that. I mean, this is just demonic people. And they're going to get even more demonic, just like the generation that killed Christ got more demonic. These people are going to become more and more possessed. And the thing is this, the third temple is satanic, right? The idea of the third temple is explicitly satanic. Because what you are saying, and if you claim Christianity, you're even more satanic. What you are saying is that Jesus' sacrifice does not matter. We need to still kill animals. That's what you're saying. You're saying, I still need to kill animals. But Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. It doesn't matter. We still need to kill animals. That's satanic. And so because these people are entering the realm of the diabolical, they are being given up by God. And when you're given up by God, you go down the route of Sodom. That's why St. Paul says, and God gave them up, when he is describing the evils of Sodom. And God gave them up. And so what does this tell us about Israel? What does this tell us about Jerusalem? It tells us that St. John was right. It's Sodom. And it also tells us that God has given up Jerusalem.